Number 8. Troy Fornaciari. In April of 2019, a leading figure of the Finks, an outlaw motorcycle club from Australia, vowed to turn his life around and have his face tattoos removed as he stood accused on multiple charges, including beating a fellow biker. In 2017, Troy Fornaciari, aged 35, had lent his Harley-Davidson to Jacob Narainen. The latter drove the motorcycle down Princess Highway but crashed it and sustained injuries in the process. Fornaciari went to the scene of the accident and, enraged that his motorcycle had been damaged, began bashing Narainen in the head. Paramedics had already arrived at the scene by that time, and they tried to intervene, with one of them reportedly telling the biker that his friend's injuries were the priority and not his damaged property. Fornaciari wouldn't relent, and the paramedics locked themselves inside the ambulance as they waited for law enforcement. Officers reportedly found Fornaciari agitatedly pacing near the emergency vehicle. He was arrested and charged with affray. In February of the following year, the biker was arrested again at the Finks North Wollongong clubhouse, where he was found to be in possession of an unlicensed firearm. As Fornaciari's trial progressed, the father of two pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including the previous attack on Narainen, as well as the firearm charge. His defense team told the court that his behavior stemmed from mental health problems and a traumatic upbringing, adding that he was committed to turning his life around, with the first step in that direction being the removal of his face tattoos. They included, among others, the words "tough luck," one on each eyelid, "in God's hands" on his cheek, and, rather ironically, "not guilty" on his cheek. Fornaciari was eventually sentenced to 3 years and 6 months in prison. Number 7. Daniel Lloyd Selovich. In late 2019, a female resident of Fairbanks, Alaska, began warning women on social media that a dangerous member of the community had returned. Daniel Lloyd Selovich, a man in his early 40s with a history of brutally abusing women, had been spotted at a McDonald's in the city. The woman took photos of him as he sat in the restaurant and openly questioned why he'd come back to Alaska. Selovich, whose face was heavily tattooed with Maori-style artwork, had legally changed his name to Pirate in 2013. Then in September of 2015, he went to Fairbanks Airport and picked up a woman he'd met online in an adult chat group. Christy Buchanan, aged 43, was taken via a charter flight to Selovich's remote cabin in the Manly Hot Springs area. It was there that he held the woman captive for 5 weeks, during the course of which he ruthlessly abused and assaulted her on a daily basis. Selovich tied Buchanan to a roof beam and put a noose around her neck. He bit, punched and kicked the woman, hit her with a belt, held a knife to her throat and threatened to cut her face off. At night, he tied himself to Buchanan with duct tape so that she wouldn't escape. She was eventually able to contact her friends on Facebook and ask them for help. The following day, November the 8th, Alaska state troopers were sent to the cabin and they airlifted her to safety. Selovich was charged with kidnapping, as well as felony and misdemeanor assault. His court date was set for August of 2016, but the case was dropped after Buchanan died from unrelated causes in July of that same year. However, Selovich wasn't released, but extradited to Nevada, where DNA evidence had linked him to the 2004 kidnapping, assault, and battery of a woman whose room he'd broken into at the Ambassador East Motel on Fremont Street, Las Vegas. He was sentenced to up to 5 years for the crime. Number 6. Cody Keenan. In November of 2019, law enforcement in Waikato, New Zealand, released a mugshot of Cody Keenan, a 28-year-old fugitive with a tattoo that read "Mighty Mongrel Mob" and stretched from ear to ear on the lower half of his face. As the mugshot began to circulate online, a number of commenters reacting to his tattoo mocked it and pointed out how recognizable Keenan was because of it. Even so, the reputed gang member had a history of successfully avoiding capture about a year prior, as the police were pursuing him on an active warrant stemming from charges of failing to appear in court. He evaded them by abandoning his van and jumping into the Waiho River. The waters were particularly turbulent around that time due to recent rainfall, but Keenan survived. He was apprehended a few days later upon crashing his car during a police chase. In 2019, shortly after his mugshot had been released to the public, the face-tattooed criminal was taken into custody once again. Number 5. Jesse Thornhill. In July of 2010, police in Tulsa, Oklahoma, responded to the call of a late-night altercation. Officers arrived to the location and were told that a resident had tried to run over his landlady with his '96 Ford Windstar van. The suspect was identified as 28-year-old Jesse Thornhill, who was easily recognizable due to his extensive cosmetic modifications. He had subdermal implants of horns on his skull, scarified patterns on his face, and piercings running transversely atop his shaved head. Among Thornhill's most striking features were also his jet black tattooed eyebrows. He'd had an argument with his landlady and reportedly tried to hit her with his car, but missed as she was able to jump out of its path. He was apprehended a few hours after the incident, and an arrest sheet, which was later posted online, mentioned a few of his modifications while also describing him as a heavy metal fan. Thornhill was held at the Tulsa County Jail overnight before he was released on a $10,000 bond. Number 4. Randy Peter Silch. In April of 2019, a Florida man whose face was covered in tattoos, consisting of tribal-style streaks and skeleton features, was arrested for murder on the same day that he'd been released from federal prison. At the time, 51-year-old Randy Peter Silch had just finished serving a term on a felon in possession of a firearm conviction. The killing to which he'd been connected had taken place over 18 years prior, in 2001. Simon Clark, a man in his early 40s, was found beaten to death at a construction site in Newport Richey. Peter Silch was investigated as a suspect, but the evidence was deemed insufficient to formally charge him. No arrests were made, and the case of Clark's violent killing went cold. In the years that followed, Peter Silch was convicted in Florida for aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, battery on a law enforcement officer, grand theft, and burglary. While executing his latest sentence for firearm possession, the investigation into Clark's murder was reopened. The authorities were able to build a stronger case against the face tattooed offender, which led to him being indicted in January of 2018. Number 3. Mark Cropp. In 2017, a man from New Zealand made international headlines through a desperate plea for work posted on social media, in which he claimed that his large face tattoo and past criminal convictions had left him unable to find a job. 19-year-old Mark Cropp had "Devastate" in thick black letters covering the entire lower half of his face. He'd gotten the massive tattoo while incarcerated and serving a 2-year sentence for armed robbery. The artwork, reported to represent Cropp's nickname, was designed by his brother. It was initially meant to be a small piece along the jawline, but as Cropp later told a media outlet, he got carried away after drinking a prison-made brew consisting of fermented apples, sugar, and bread. As reports of his struggle went viral, Cropp was inundated with dozens of job offers and eventually found employment. The Sacred Laser Tattoo Removal Studio in Kingsland offered to remove the Devastate piece for free, and according to updates on the matter, Cropp had begun the first round of laser treatment. Number 2. Sarah Jane Sinclair. While talking to a media outlet in September of 2021, a British woman revealed that she'd been subjected to online abuse because of her face tattoos. According to mother of one Sarah Jane Sinclair from Harlow, Essex, she'd developed a tattoo addiction after getting her first artwork when she was in her late teens. Sinclair intended to be fully covered in tattoos and by her mid-20s had already progressed considerably in that regard. She had 9 tattoos on her face alone, including a mandala design on her forehead, her daughter's name on her cheekbone, as well as the phrases "stand out" and "be original" on her cheek. Regarding her presence on social media, Sinclair reported, "75% of what I get is hate, with commenters saying that she wouldn't be able to get a job or that she'd permanently ruined her face. Even though she admitted that the negative attention sometimes affected her, Sinclair was committed to getting more tattoos, claiming that the only one she regretted wasn't located on her face, but on her buttock. It was the name of a man for whom Sinclair had fallen after they'd been dating for about 2 weeks. Unfortunately, she then found out that he'd been seeing another woman at the same time. Number 1. Michael Campbell. In October of 2021, a man whom the Smoking Gun website described as the world's scariest perp was arrested and faced life in prison for trying to assault a woman as she slept beside her boyfriend. 46-year-old Michael Campbell was a known predator who'd already been registered in law enforcement databases for a similar attack that had occurred in Denver, Colorado in 1995. In the latest incident, which took place at a property in Greene County, Missouri, Campbell had pulled down the woman's pants and underwear while her boyfriend was asleep next to her. The man then woke up and chased Campbell, who fled the scene on a blue bicycle. The victim and witnesses to the chase described the attacker as a man with many face tattoos. Aside from a large pentagram in the center of his forehead and some Celtic knots, Campbell's face was largely blackened with tattoo ink. He also had a bow tie design on his neck and a pit bull below it. Police officers later found him riding on a freshly painted gold bicycle, which, on closer inspection, was revealed to have blue paint underneath. He was taken into custody and held on a $100,000 bond. When questioned about the attack, Campbell defended his actions by claiming that the woman had made advances towards him and adding that he'd turned her down because a curfew was in effect. His trial is ongoing, but considering his extensive criminal history, Campbell may end up spending the rest of his life behind bars. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get your ex's name tattooed on your forehead or take a vow of silence for a year? Let us know in the comments section below.